The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and the high-profile acquittal of his girlfriend Karen Reed. Karen Reed will walk free, but there are still a lot of lingering questions connected to this divisive drama. Here's the story. Boston police officer John O'Keefe lived a life of quiet heroism. A 16-year veteran of the force, he was known for his dedication to justice, kindness, and unwavering loyalty to his family. After the tragic passing of his sister, John stepped up selflessly to raise her two young children, becoming both father and uncle, protector and provider. He balanced the weight of the badge with the tender duties of parenthood, never missing a school play or a bedtime story. Friends and colleagues remember him as the kind of man who would never hesitate to help, always putting others first. But in January of 2022, tragedy struck. After a night out, John O'Keefe was found unresponsive in the snow outside a home in Canton. What followed was a swirl of mystery, suspicion, and heartbreak. His death not only shattered his loved ones, it ignited a firestorm of controversy that would shake the foundations of law enforcement and justice in Massachusetts. The woman accused of his murder was found not guilty by the jury, leaving the question of what happened to John O'Keefe unanswered. When the verdict is not guilty, that means no one was found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's our standard of proof for a jury to come back and tell us what happened, come back and tell us the truth, to deliver justice. Didn't happen in this case. What happened was a not guilty verdict, and the not guilty verdict doesn't really answer a lot of questions necessarily. But in this case, in the case of Karen Reed, it created quite a reaction. You saw it here on Court TV. I was in the middle of it all. Take a look.
Not guilty or guilty? So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you all?
So I was stationed outside of the courthouse in the middle of all those folks. I got to know them, and I understand what their reaction is to all of this. They felt it was an injustice. They felt like Karen Reed was falsely accused. That's that side of the story. There's two sides to every trial that we cover on Court TV. There's the accused, that was Karen Reed in this case, and then there's the prosecution representing the state, the Commonwealth, the people, but also really representing the victims in the case. And the victims in a case where you are alleging murder, where someone died, the victims are those who loved John O'Keefe. And that brings me to the first question in our investigation tonight, and it's about the other side. How are the friends and family of John O'Keefe handling the verdict? It was obvious to me what they believed happened here. They believed Karen Reed was responsible. So how are friends and family handling this not guilty verdict? To help us answer that, I'd like to bring in John Jackson. He is a close friend of John O'Keefe. They were good friends. since college. I can understand this can't be easy, but I need you to help us understand what it's like from the other side. That story hasn't been told enough. How are you personally handling what transpired and the verdict in this case?
That's the lead-in. That's the lead-in to this. That's the footage of the lead-in to this. Vinny, we saw you out there. We saw you with your pink tie. We saw you just bathing in the sea of pink.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Didn't wear a pink tie, John. Didn't wear a pink tie,
John. You hold it up. You held it up, right?
No, I didn't. I held up a red tie, John. If you've watched me, if you've watched my career,
so
every verdict I wear a red tie. So I switched from the purple. From the purple.
The career is interesting.
Okay, this is the way it's going to go. Let's go.
The career is fantastic. The career is fantastic. Look, up until this case, we all watched you. We all did. We all watched, any case that had any kind of interest to us, we watched. But I just watched that interview with that juror. Well, I was here to talk about something completely different. And it's unfortunate because...
Okay, let's talk about whatever you want to talk about, John. I'll give you an opportunity. It's not a problem.
I can't believe what I just heard from that. I mean, I just watched the show, so I can't believe what I just heard that juror say. So many things. I mean, I just went over it. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. It believes the dog bite theory, but they didn't really present it at trial. Those are her words. Barros, she talked about Officer Barros. She apparently missed the cross-examination, although she did hat tip to Mr. Hank Brennan for his cross-examinations. But hey, look, I'd love to talk about Johnny.
John, let me give you an opportunity. You could talk about whatever you want. As a guest on this show, you can talk about whatever you want right now. You've got the microphone. We've got the camera. You have a question for me. If you want to talk about the juror, the way she saw the case, that's fine. You've answered my question that I have already. I sense that you are absolutely livid. You're unhappy. There's a sense of anger. So my question's answered.
Yeah.
I'll give you an opportunity to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
So let me just run through it. Okay, it's been a couple days. So the first couple days, obviously we were all together when the verdict came out, and it was rough, man. It was you sat through the whole case and you watched everything come and go, all the evidence come and go, and look, to us, the prosecution put on a good case, and to us, that data from her car and from Johnny's cell phone told the whole story. Right. So we're not hearing too much about that right now from these jurors. I'm a little surprised. Look, I came out that night. I said, look, we respect the jury's decision. I mean, that's how it is. And it's OK. That's the process. I'm to be honest, I'm stunned at what I just saw. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I wasn't really there until I just saw that interview. And it kind of put me there. It is literally like the social media side of this and the blogging side of this and the law tuber side of this just came out of that juror's mouth. I'm actually stunned. I was calm. I wasn't here, but I can't believe I just heard it. It kind of put me in a position, and I'm sorry. Didn't mean to start off that way.
Hey, John, your emotions are real. You're entitled to your emotions.
Of course they are.
This is an incredible loss. And I've seen cases of not guilties before. I know it can be crushing. I know it can create anger. And I just want to hear it. I want to hear your side of this. So hearing what we heard from juror number 11 tonight and the way things went down, where do you point blame anywhere for why this result came out, a result that you don't believe in at all?
Yeah, so obviously, there's a couple places we'd like to put some blame, but let me start off again. We respect the process, right? If the process is fair, if there's no fingers on the scale, we respect the process, and the jurors spoke, so that's it, right? I mean, we understand that's it, but what we don't appreciate is the narrative that got away from us pretty early was a false narrative. So, trial one, trial two, both of them, and the popularity of the movement grew, And as the movement grew, it drew in more and more media types, traditional media, new media, drew them all in, and they went and chased the clicks, and they chased the likes, and they chased the popularity, which is fine. That's what they do. But what we feel is that at some point, look outside that courthouse, right? The family heard the cheers. Brother, friend, son. They heard the cheers, and it was devastating, right? So the media needs to take responsibility for their part in this. I'm not saying it was totally there, but for their part in this, for allowing themselves to choose sides, for allowing themselves to be part of the fuel for that fire that caught and wound up outside of that courthouse. So yeah, some of the blame goes there.
So let's
go ahead.
No, continue. I don't want to cut you off. I thought you were done. Continue.
Look, so the problem is for us too. We've lived this for 3.5 years, and we've every piece of evidence that came in, both sides. We can be objective about it and say when things went poorly for us and when things went well for us, and it just, even when things went well for us, again, Juror 11 here. Look, Ms. Hank Brennan, Adam Lally, Attorney McLaughlin, they put on a good case, and it's unfortunate because I'm looking now. This doesn't look like it ever had a chance. It doesn't. A couple of other jurors I've spoken to, and I wasn't going to go there with this, but that I can't even. Literally raw emotions are coming out here, so that's not where I wanted to go tonight. I wanted to be calm and talk about Johnny and the pain that this family is definitely experiencing.
So, yeah, and we've heard from other jurors that are speaking. Do you at all look at the investigation itself, the way things were handled that night?
Sure.
I know there was a nor'easter coming in. I know that is difficult, but it's Massachusetts, not securing the scene, other things that were pointed out to the jury, because they kept saying to me, not just this juror, but other jurors, holes in the investigation. There were holes in the investigation.
Sure. I can address that, sure. So again, me personally, I'm not speaking for anybody else here, but I will say that, the investigation found the right person. My personal opinion is that maybe, especially with a police officer involved, maybe a little more follow through, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and I'm being, I'm softening it a little bit. But am I happy with the investigation? No. But did they come up with the right person? Yes. Right. So the evidence in this case points to one person. Well, one person only, and we've followed the social media, we've followed the online stuff and all the other media, and it, the reality is, the wrong narrative still exists. The wrong narrative is still out there. That they're talking about third-party culprits, and it's all nonsense. One person did this. We know it. We've known it since the beginning. And you want to talk about the investigation? I understand. Look, beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. We get it. And we can have an honest conversation about whether or not, beyond a reasonable doubt, the threshold was met here. I believe it was. But if you want to talk about specifically maybe the collision, whether or not a collision happened, you can have that argument. I think a totality of the evidence shows, yeah, it happened. But if you want to have an honest conversation about whether that happened and whether they proved it or not, I think they did. If a juror came out and said, look, I just don't believe in a collision, fine. But when they come out and they say things like, it wasn't 100%, instead of, if it was 99, then you can't convict. Not understanding reasonable doubt, totality of the evidence, not understanding that their job. They say they understood their job, but they didn't get it. Or at least that one, I should say.
Right.
So yeah, again, investigation found the right person. I would have liked a little more follow through, but maybe things will change because of this case, right? You would hope that when investigations happen now, they would have to sort of foresee that maybe a wealthy defendant would be able to purchase the circus, So That's how I see it. So yeah, if you want to have an honest discussion about reasonable doubt, I could probably get on board with that. But the other stuff, she said, this last juror talked about the dog bites. Barros, she never listened to Hank Brennan's. I mean, Aperture was unprofessional. I mean, look, you say what you want, but you can go after the individual if you want. But Shannon Burgess, he found the chip that put the data that put her car there. She was the one who drove the car forward 30 and change feet, and then reversed and another 50 feet at a high rate of speed. Even that juror said, she said it. She says she doesn't know what, maybe she hit him, but then he went in the house after with his socks on. I mean, oh my God. He didn't have a shot. There was never a shot here. And so the emotions you hear now is I'm transitioning away from the grief and the disbelief. We're pragmatic about it. We understood that this could happen, but this is not what we expected. We expected a more deliberate jury, I guess, would be the best way to say it.
John, and there are commercials and there are segments in a show.
Sure.
But
sure.
I want to extend this segment and give you an opportunity. Again, is there any other area that you would want people to know about tonight? Because I think your voice is an important voice in all of this.
Sure. If you want me to stick around, or you want me to just do this now?
No, we're pushing the commercial. We're pushing it, so we're giving you a little extra time here. I'm sorry for the confusion.
This is your thing, So yeah, no. Look, let's just talk about the family for a moment, okay? Let's just talk about Johnny's family. They've been through a tremendous, and you hear it. You hear people say justice for John O'Keefe. The reality is, we knew, guilty or not, that Johnny's never coming home, right? He's just not coming home. The pain, the damage was already done. He's never coming back, and that pain's never going to change. The O'Keefes, obviously, most know the story now about his Johnny's older sister passing, and his brother-in-law, and how he took in the kids, and that is heroic stuff. That's not run-of-the-mill stuff. That's stuff that when the moment arises, and you feel like, I'd be that guy. I would be that guy. I don't know. You hope you would, but he was that guy. And he was that guy for everybody. That wasn't just his niece and nephew, who he loved and cherished more than anything. That's who he was to all of us. That was who he was to people he didn't know. He was a helper. He was a giver. He was charitable. He was an amazing man. And the O'Keefes need to be left alone to grieve now, right? We're going to put a period at the end of this chapter. We're going to move on. The O'Keefes need to grieve. So anybody who's online still talking, peg this, peg that. First of all, it's Mrs. O'Keefe to us, okay? Stop talking about them. Start looking. People invested their lives in the last 30 plus days or even 3 years or so in this, and they're zeroing in on people on the family side of that bench, and they would constantly go on social media, point things out, and say terrible things. This is a grieving family. It's unacceptable. And we know in the first trial, walking in that door, everybody screamed and yelled, "Cop killers, cop killers." It was unbelievable. And then they learned, it's bad PR, so we're going to stop that now. And they did, but they didn't stop online. And I won't say the names, but the niece and nephew that Johnny took in, they're incredible kids. But the kids, they're on social media. You can't stop that. And they see it. And they see the pain of the family, of the grandparents. So when you consider saying something about the O'Keefes, well, Paul, leave Paul alone. It's time to leave him alone. He deserves to grieve. We understand the verdict is in. She's free to do whatever she wants in this life, right? But that pain is not going to stop for that family, or for the friends, or for any of us. And the world is going to miss out on a tremendous individual And it doesn't change the fact that we know who did it, right? We know who did it. Just didn't get the guilty. Wasn't beyond a reasonable doubt in this jury's eyes. It's unfortunate. And anyway, I appreciate you let me say that.
Yeah. Well, John, I appreciate you coming on. It's not easy, and what you said, everyone heard, and I think that's important. And I'm sorry for your loss of your good friend, and for going through all this and all the pain. John Jackson, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Vinny, appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
When we come back, more of our investigation. Don't go anywhere.
The Court TV Podcast will return.
Let the community feel through your verdict that justice cannot be bent and that it will not be buried. Find Karen Reed not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
It's Alan Jackson asking for 3 not guilties, and pretty much what he got. Pretty much what he got in the case. Again, we thank John Jackson for coming on and showing us how the other side has reacted to all this and their thoughts and feelings tonight. I thought that was important. I thought it was powerful. And he mentioned something that I want to talk about now. You know, in an interview with TMZ, that juror that he was speaking about, identified only by his first name, Jason, explained how he viewed this concept, which is the backbone of our system of criminal justice, this concept of reasonable doubt.
I don't know what happened to John. I think it was just due to the poor investigation. There's just too many holes. Is there an angle of reasonable doubt to where we're not really sure? Like, are you really sure? Are you 100% or are you 99.9%? You know, if you're that 99%, you know, we can't convict you.
Did you hear that? And that's what John was talking about. 99% cannot convict you. You need to be 100% to erase, if you're 100% sure, to erase all the reasonable doubt. And that brings me to the next question in our investigations. In light of that, did prosecutors stand a chance here in this case? If you've got to prove the case 100%, that 99% is still leaves reasonable doubt. Here to help answer that question, criminal defense attorney Bob Mata, also the host of the Defense Diaries podcast, which is amazing. Also with us, longtime Massachusetts attorney Rick Grundy. All right, Rick, I'm going to start with you on this one. As a former homicide prosecutor in Norfolk County, did prosecutors stand a chance with this juror if it's got to be 100%, that 99.9% still leaves reasonable doubt?
And another juror didn't catch in the instructions that when something's objected to, you don't take it into consideration, such as the garage. I want to say first, Vinny, just that to Mr. Jackson, I appreciated hearing from him very much. And I thought he brilliantly, in his final segment, put forth the caring of the O'Keefe family and their wishes and needs for the future. The raw emotion before is an exhibit of how crucial the work that is done here in the prosecution is and how it affects people's lives. There was an article in the Globe today. Former Trooper Proctor gave an interview. 2 things jumped out at what he said. First was that the investigation targeted, he didn't use the word target, but found somebody that he was assured of quickly, negating the need for further investigation in these outlying areas that the defense seized upon. In doing so, he indicated that number one, that it was his decision to make and that it was allowed by the office. Something I didn't invent, but I installed in there was for every death, along with the investigators, when it happens, goes a trial attorney and appeals attorney. They're there because they need to present that case to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. A trial attorney equal to leading the evidence to the guilty party is looking at it with an eye towards what is the defense going to be. An investigation needs to be done to address that defense, and it needs to be done then and there, which is why the trooper doesn't make that decision. The appellate attorney is there to look for what those legal hurdles are going to be to get to reasonable doubt and work with them there in the time. This case was lost because the Norfolk District Attorney's Office sent out a message and a team ill-equipped to address a case of this nature. So no, by the time it was at the courthouse step, there wasn't an opportunity to reach that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Bob, did prosecutors stand a chance here?
Ironically, coming out of that first trial, my gut was telling me, and then when we ended up hearing from the one juror, Ronnie, from the first trial, it became evident to me that what the defense didn't do in the first trial was really pound home with the jurors exactly what reasonable doubt was or is. And it's amorphous. It's a hard thing to really define. And instructions in every state are different. Massachusetts has that moral certainty portion of it, which is pretty intense. I mean, that's some of the more intense language I've ever heard in terms of explaining to a juror what that means, what reasonable doubt means. And here, I think it was the polar opposite. I think what happened for Hank Brennan is he failed to explain what his burden is and where that jury has to be. It doesn't have to be I'm 100%, because that's not what a reasonable doubt is. A reasonable doubt is not 100%.
And that's coming from
what that is.
Criminal defense attorney Bob Motta. Okay, guys, you're going to stick around. When we come back, were the Alberts and McCabe's treated fairly?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and the dramatic acquittal of his girlfriend Karen Reed. Many people's lives were impacted by the case and this trial. Here's the story. The death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe sent shockwaves through Massachusetts, but the chaos that followed was a storm no one expected. Found lifeless in the snow outside of 34 Fairview Road in January of 2022, John O'Keefe's mysterious death ignited a fiery legal saga. Karen Reed, his girlfriend, was accused of backing her SUV into him during a snowstorm. But as her defense launched counter-allegations, a war erupted. The Alberts and McCabe's, who were at the home where O'Keefe was found the night he died, were thrust into the spotlight, accused of covering up a violent altercation inside the house. Protesters showed up outside their homes. Careers were upended, reputations shredded. The courtroom became a battleground. Corruption, conspiracy, and a deep distrust of law enforcement on display. The first trial ended in a hung jury, but the retrial brought a stunning twist. Karen Reed was acquitted of all charges but drunk driving. Vindicated, she walked free, leaving behind a community torn apart and a truth still bitterly contested. Like I said, other people were impacted by all this, particularly two families. You know, the Alberts and the McCabe's did an interview with ABC's Nightline, and they talked about how they've been treated.
Have each of you been called murderers? Like actual murderers?
Oh, yeah, on a daily basis.
Anybody who's touched this case has been called a murderer at some point.
And anyone who's friends with us support cop killers.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the next question in our investigation, and it's about these two families. Were the Alberts and McCabe's treated fairly? Let's bring in our guest going to help us answer this question. John DePietro, host and creator of Road Patrol Live, and attorney Ali Krathhamel. Great to have you both here. John, from your perspective, what do you think about the Alberts and the McCabe's? Were they treated fairly throughout all this?
Hey, first of all, I want to say that was really powerful interview with John Jackson. I know John. This is really incredible how much he was impacted by it. You saw outside the courthouse, you saw when I walked out and what the reaction was. And when you think about it, that's just because I believe the case that the Commonwealth put on. I don't have these crazy ideas of conspiracy, and you saw the reaction. So the answer to this is a very, very dangerous atmosphere right now that is being perpetrated we need the search for the real killers. There was an investigation on this. The Alberts, the McCabe's were friends with John O'Keefe. These people did nothing wrong. Now, since the verdict, Vinnie, their lives have been turned upside down just the past 2 days. And some people are not going to be happy until something very dramatic happens. The other night at the courthouse, Hank Brennan wanted to walk down the front steps. I talked to the troopers. They told him not to because they didn't feel they had enough police for the crowd. There's something wrong with that. There was something wrong that people were cheering that someone was found guilty on an OUI. This case is upside down. But as far as the McCabe's and the Alberts, they were targeted early. This was a concerted effort to make their life hell, as they talked about. They're now starting to talk about it. But this is a classic example, as they talked about, of witness intimidation, dehumanize, attack, vicious, lies about them, and just trying to make their life hell so they wouldn't testify. There is no rationale. Someone has to step forward and stop this narrative that the search is on for the real killers, because that's code to go after those two families.
Allie, do you believe that the Alberts and McCabe's were treated fairly here?
Well, I do, because they signed themselves up for this. So they're deleting Google searches. They're butt dialing people. Ridiculous. They signed themselves up for it. In fact, they're going up online right now, going in social media, asking for attention. They're doing interviews. If they were concerned.
The Google search was disproved.
John, you got to let Allie finish her answer, please, John. Go ahead.
All right, fair enough.
So they're going on interviews. If they don't want attention, if they're so distraught over John dying, why don't they stay in their house and be quiet? They're going on national TV acting like they're the victims. Let's be clear here. There's two victims here. There's a fallen police officer who is now deceased and an innocent woman who is now exonerated. Those are your two victims. It's not the McCabe's. It's not the Alberts. And they're making themselves out to be that.
Go ahead, John.
Listen. These people, she either is ignoring or doesn't realize what started, and it was a concerted effort to go after them, to target them. What are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do? Just be silent? Stay in their house?
They're not supposed to lie. They're supposed to say the truth.
Do you understand that people were showing up where their children go to school, where the third-party culprit was debunked? Does she understand that? There are people that still think you have a juror saying it happened in the garage. I'm right here. You don't have to talk in the third person. Stay in their homes. They're fighting for their lives. What do you mean lie? Who lied? What? Why? If there is a witness,
did you watch the trial, John?
These people were witnesses. Do you understand?
Correct. So they shouldn't be deleting stuff. They should.
What are you talking about? This was all disproved. All right, and I'll take that. Then why didn't the defense put a witness on the stand to challenge Ian Whiffen? They didn't put anyone on the stand to challenge that.
Why didn't?
Hold on, you wouldn't answer that. 227 never happened. Do you accept that? Do you accept that 227 never happened?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not do I accept that.
How is that
McCabe's
possible?
And the McAlberts should be asking Hank Brennan, if they want to say their truth, if they want to testify as to what happened that day, why aren't they asking Mr. Brennan to get on the stand and to testify in trial number 2? Why? Because they're liars. That's why.
The defense could have. You're just trying to flame people up.
It's not the defense's burden.
To do what you're trying to accomplish.
It's not the defense's burden. You can't accept that Karen Reed is not found not guilty. That's the problem here, John. You can't accept it.
We're talking about witness intimidation, as they talked about. I think you'd feel differently if you witnessed something and then suddenly a gang of people were showing up in your driveway, coming by your house, sending things to your employer.
Wouldn't make collusions and conspiracies, John. I wouldn't lie.
Do you think that's our system?
They are liars. They signed up for this. Go to the FBI. Go tell the truth. Don't delete searches. Don't.
All right. How did Brian Albert lie? How did Brian Albert lie?
All of them lied. It's a collusion. It's a conspiracy. You're right. I can't sit here and say.
Play it out. Let me know how many people are involved in the conspiracy. I want to hear this, because why didn't the defense do this? The defense didn't use the third-party culprit.
It's not the defense's burden, John. It's the Commonwealth's burden. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, not the defense.
They were making.
I feel like we're in the jury room right now. I feel like we're in the jury room during the first trial, and I appreciate the passion on both sides. John DePietro, thank you so much. Ali Crothamel, unfortunately, we're out of time for tonight, but this conversation will continue. When we come back, final question of our investigation tonight. Was the 5:07 a.m. video the most important piece of evidence?
You look at this angle. Keep going.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
You look at this angle. Keep going. We don't plan. It's already gone. You know where it is? 34 Fairview Road.
That was a moment from Hank Brennan's closing argument referencing the video of the taillight as being evidence that proved his case. That proved his case. That the taillight was broken. It was broken because it was broken when she was back at 34 Fairview. So at 5:07, that video proved his case. Well, in an interview with TMZ, a juror identified as Jason explained how he viewed the taillight evidence from 5:07 a.m. when Karen Reed was backing out of John O'Keefe's garage and then driving down the driveway to meet up with Jennifer McCabe and Kerry Roberts. Take a listen.
The videos that we could see from the car after the alleged incident happened, that when we could see the taillight, it was lit up red where it shouldn't just have been red. How come it's red in this video after the alleged, collision happened, and then it's not, it doesn't have any red pieces where it should be red. I don't believe that the SUV collided with John O'Keefe.
Okay, and that brings us to the next question in our investigation tonight. It's all about the video. Was the 5:07 a.m. video the most important piece of evidence? That juror said it was all red, and then the only way it could be all red is if it wasn't broken. Here to help us out, criminal defense attorney Bob Mata, host of Defense Diaries, incredible podcast, also a longtime Massachusetts attorney Rick Grundy. Bob, $500,000 spent on experts and everything else going on in this case, getting into the weeds, and a simple video is what really helped convince this juror that she was not guilty. Was this the key piece of evidence?
I mean, for that juror, but, it's the totality of the circumstances. As I've said, Vinny, to me, this trial, in terms of how the defense decided to try it, was the science. And the fact of the matter is when you learn that if a diffuser, that little piece of clear plastic that had the dots on it, if that diffuser is removed, the taillight doesn't illuminate at all. Not red, not white, nothing. There is no illumination. So the fact of the matter is if it went down the way the Commonwealth had said, in terms of Karen hitting John, and that diffuser, which they say they found in the lawn, was in fact out of that taillight is black. It's dark. There's nothing. So to me, it was a huge, huge win for the defense when Hank Brennan decided to lean into that, because if they were listening carefully to Alan Jackson's argument, he brought up that fact. That diffuser was a big deal, that was really kind of a low-key piece of evidence. And to me, it really, I think, probably turned a couple of the jurors.
Rick, there was so much done with these experts, but neither side did a video to try to show what the SUV would look like at night. Like, the prosecution could have taken a tail light, could have carved it exactly the way it was broken, and then put it on the SUV and show the jury how it would illuminate. Defense could have done the same thing. Obviously, at this point, they didn't have to, but nobody did that. And for this juror, he looked at the video. In this case, that was, I don't know how many times I did this segment, looking at the images of the taillight. So was this the most important piece of evidence, and was it slightly overlooked?
I think I can tell you how many times you addressed it, Vinny, because I think every time you did it to me, and it gave me a headache because I couldn't make out what I was seeing on it. So I agree with you. I think there was tunnel vision with respect to a number of things that the juries seem to have seized upon. They got into this war of their experts. The Commonwealth had to do that because they had to put out an explanation for how the injuries were concerned. But I think on a large degree, that canceled each other out, and they looked towards other things. Also, with respect to any individual piece of evidence, and depending on when it was introduced at the case, I've learned a lot from some great trial attorneys over the years, AKA stolen it from them. One of the original things that I had was when I teach trial advocacy, the beginning of discussing opening statements is I tell them you've got two hurdles to get over. The first hurdle, and the most difficult hurdle, is to get the jury wanting to decide in your favor. Your second hurdle is then give them enough information and evidence to do that. And I think once you get to these individual pieces of evidence, they have started to lean one way or the other. I think it also plays a part when they listen to the jury instructions and they hear 100% instead of reasonable doubt. 2 words, reasonable and doubt. Or they think the objection to the garage was a crucial piece for them. So you got to win them. You got to get them over there. It's hard to do over a period of 29 days. Your opening works to do that in a 4-day trial, not so much in a lengthy trial.
All right, Bob, we have 10 seconds left. Just give me a final word on your thoughts of everything that has happened here.
You know, at the end of the day, I hope the O'Keefe family is allowed to grieve. It's a tragedy. I thought that Mr. Jackson was a pretty poignant guest to have on. And you know, I hope that the biggest takeaway for me is that, in my estimation, the system works.
All right. Bob Motta, Rick Grundy, thank you so much. We've learned a lot about this case in the last 3+ years of our coverage. But with this verdict, the one thing we have not learned is what happened to John O'Keefe. And the truth is we won't. Everyone who has an opinion will hold on to it. We may get some additional facts from a civil case, but our criminal courts are where we go for the truth. But nothing was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So we didn't get it. Instead, we have even more questions. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.